Maya Rodriguez pushed her old piano down the sidewalk every day at 3 o'clock. The wheels made a soft rolling sound on the concrete as she moved toward her favorite corner. This corner sat right outside the big music building at Whitmore University. She had been coming to this same spot for 3 long years. The piano was not beautiful. Its black paint had chips and scratches from being moved so many times. Some of the keys stuck when Maya pressed them. The bench was wobbly and made creaking sounds. But Maya loved this piano more than anything in the world. It was her partner, her voice, and her way of sharing her heart with everyone who walked. By every afternoon, Maya would set up her piano on the corner. She would adjust the bench just right and place her small tip jar on the ground. The jar had a simple sign that said, "Thank you for listening." Maya never asked people for money. She played because she loved music, not because she wanted to get rich. When Maya started playing, magic happened on that busy corner. Students who were rushing to class would slow down and stop. Teachers carrying heavy books would pause and smile. Even the people who cleaned the buildings would find reasons to work nearby so they could hear Maya's beautiful music. Maya was not like other street musicians. She had a special story that made her music even more amazing. When she was very young, Maya was what people called a child prodigy. This meant she was incredibly good at playing piano when she was still just a little girl. Her parents first noticed her talent when she was only 4 years old. Maya would sit at their old piano and play songs she had only heard once on the radio. By the time Maya turned 10, she was playing concerts for hundreds of people. Music teachers from all over the state came to hear this amazing young girl play. They said she had magic in her fingers. Maya could make the piano sing in ways that made grown-ups cry happy tears. When Maya was 16, something wonderful happened. She got a full scholarship to Juilliard, one of the most famous music schools in the world. Only the very best young musicians got to study there. Maya felt like she was living in a dream. She packed her bags and moved to New York City to study. With the greatest piano teachers on earth. Maya loved everything about Juilliard. She practiced 8 hours every day and learned new pieces that were harder than anything she had ever played before. Her teachers said she would become one of the greatest pianists in the world someday. Maya believed them. She could see her future clearly. She would play in big concert halls with thousands of people listening. She would record albums and travel the world sharing her music. But life can change in just 1 second. During Maya's second year at Juilliard, she was walking home from a late practice session. It was winter and the streets were icy. A car came around the corner too fast. The driver hit a patch of ice and lost control. Maya tried to jump out of the way, but she was not fast enough. The accident hurt Maya badly. Her left hand was crushed, and the doctors had to operate 3 times to try to fix it. For months, Maya could not move her fingers at all. The tendons that controlled her hand were damaged, and no one knew if they would ever work normally again. Maya spent 2 years trying to get better. She went to physical therapy every day. She did exercises to make her fingers stronger. She worked harder than she had ever worked at anything, even harder than she had worked on piano. But her left hand never got completely better. 3 of her fingers could barely move, and the others were weak and stiff. The doctors and therapists were kind, but they were also honest. They told Maya that she would never be able to play piano the way she used to. Professional concert pianists need both hands to work perfectly. Maya's dream of becoming a world-famous pianist was over. For a long time, Maya felt angry and sad. She had lost the most important thing in her life. She stopped playing piano completely. She could not bear to touch the keys, knowing that she would never sound the same. Maya left Juilliard and moved back home with her parents. She spent months just sitting in her room, not wanting to do anything, but slowly something inside Maya began to change. She realized that even though she could not play the way she used to, she could still make music. Maybe it would sound different, but it would still be music. Maybe different was not the same as worse. Maya started practicing again, but this time she had to learn everything in a new way. She figured out how to use her right hand to do most of the work while her left hand added small touches here and there. It was like learning to walk again after being in a wheelchair. At first, Maya's new style sounded strange to her. She was used to playing with both hands doing equal amounts of work. Now her music sounded different, more delicate in some ways, but also more intense. She had to think harder about every note, which made each one more meaningful after months of practice. Maya made an amazing discovery. Her new way of playing was not worse than her old way. It was just different. The limitations of her injured hand had forced her to be creative in ways she never would have tried before. Her music had a unique sound that no other pianist in the world could make. Maya decided to take her music to the streets. She bought an old upright piano from a church that was closing down. She found a small storage unit where she could keep it safe when she was not playing. And she chose the corner outside the music building at Whitmore University as her new concert hall. The first day Maya played on the corner, only a few people stopped to listen, but word spread quickly. Students started telling their friends about the amazing piano player on the corner. Teachers began planning their walks to pass by Maya's spot. Soon, Maya had regular listeners who came to hear her every single day. Maya played all kinds of music. She played classical pieces that she remembered from Juilliard. But she also played popular songs, jazz standards, and music she composed herself. Her favorite pieces were the ones she wrote about her own life. Songs about dreams, loss, hope, and finding new ways to be happy. People loved Maya's music because it was real. They could hear her story in every note. They could feel that this was a person who had faced hard times but had not given up. Maya's music reminded everyone who heard it that beautiful things could come from difficult experiences. Some days, Maya would play for just a few people. Other days, crowds of 50 or more would gather around her piano. Maya loved the big crowds, but she also treasured the quiet moments when just one person would stop and listen to a whole song. Those people often needed the music the most. The corner became Maya's second home. She knew all the regular students by sight. She played special songs for people on their birthdays. She even played at a few weddings when couples asked her to provide music for their proposals. Maya had found a new kind of success, one that was different from what she had originally dreamed, but just as meaningful. Dr. Harrison Blackwell walked through the campus of Whitmore University with his head held high and his expensive shoes clicking on the walkways. He had just started his new job as Dean of Fine Arts, and he wanted everything to be perfect. Dr. Blackwell was the kind of man who cared very much about what other people thought. He wanted everyone to see Whitmore University as the best and most important school in the state. Dr. Blackwell had worked hard to get this job. He had spent 20 years climbing the ladder at different universities, always looking for ways to make himself more important. He wore the most expensive suits he could afford and always made sure his office had the biggest desk and the fanciest decorations. When he talked to other professors, he liked to mention all the famous people he had met and all the important conferences he had attended. The new dean had big plans for the fine arts department. He wanted to bring in famous visiting artists who would make other schools jealous. He wanted to build new concert halls that would look impressive in magazines. Most of all, he wanted everyone who saw Whitmore University to think it was a place where only the most talented and sophisticated people belonged. On his third day as dean, Dr. Blackwell was walking back to his office after lunch when he heard piano music coming from somewhere outside. The music was beautiful, but Dr. Blackwell did not care about that. What bothered him was that the music was coming from the street, not from inside the proper concert halls where he thought music should be played. Dr. Blackwell followed the sound until he found Maya at her corner. She was playing a sad, slow song that made the small crowd around her very quiet and thoughtful. An older professor was standing nearby with tears in his eyes. Two students were holding hands and listening with big smiles on their faces. Even some construction workers had stopped their loud drilling to hear Maya's music, but Dr. Blackwell did not see the joy that Maya was bringing to all these people. Instead, he saw what he thought was a problem. Here was this woman with her beat-up old piano, sitting on a public street corner like any common street performer. People walking by might think that this was the kind of music that Whitmore University supported. They might think that the school was not serious about high-quality art. Dr. Blackwell stood at the edge of the crowd for a few minutes, getting more and more annoyed. Maya's piano was old and scratched. Her clothes were simple and not fancy. She was not wearing the kind of formal concert dress that Dr. Blackwell thought musicians should wear. Worst of all, she had a tip jar on the ground, which made her look like she was begging for money. The dean watched as people dropped coins and dollar bills into Maya's jar. He saw students sitting on the grass nearby, doing their homework while they listened to her play. He noticed that even some of his own faculty members were in the crowd, nodding their heads to the rhythm of Maya's music. This made Dr. Blackwell even more upset. How could serious professors waste their time listening to street music? After Maya finished her song and the crowd started to break up, Dr. Blackwell walked closer to get a better look at the situation. He saw that Maya's corner was technically on public property, but it was right next to the university's music building. Anyone walking by would naturally assume that Maya was connected to the school somehow. Dr. Blackwell did not talk to Maya. That day, he did not ask her about her story or try to understand why so many people loved her music. Instead, he went straight back to his office and started making phone calls. He called the city planning office to ask about street performance regulations. He called the university's legal department to ask about the school's image and reputation. He called the security office to ask about their authority over the areas around campus. Dr. Blackwell spent the rest of the week researching and planning. He discovered that Maya had been playing on that corner for 3 years without any problems. He learned that the spot was in a gray area between city property and university property, which meant that the rules were not completely clear. Most importantly, he found out that no one had ever complained about Maya's performances before, but Dr. Blackwell was not interested in what had happened before. He only cared about what he thought should happen now. He believed that a prestigious university should not have street musicians performing near its buildings. He thought that Maya's music, no matter how beautiful, was bringing down the tone of the whole campus. The dean started writing a new policy for the university. He called it a regulation against unauthorized musical performances in university-adjacent areas. He used big words and complicated language to make it sound very official and important. The policy said that any music performed near the university had to be approved in advance by the Fine Arts Department. It also said that street performances created acoustic pollution and could disturb students who were trying to study. Dr. Blackwell knew that his new policy was really aimed at stopping Maya, but he did not want to say that directly. Instead, he wrote the rules to sound like they were protecting the educational environment and maintaining high standards for the arts. He convinced himself that he was doing the right thing for the university. The dean also contacted the city government to ask for their help. He told them that street performances near the university were creating problems for students and faculty. He said that the music was too loud and that it attracted crowds that blocked the sidewalks. None of these things were actually true, but Dr. Blackwell presented his case so confidently that the city officials believed him. Within a week, Dr. Blackwell had gotten the city to agree to classify Maya's corner as a no-solicitation zone. This meant that people were not allowed to ask for money there, which would effectively stop Maya from playing since she depended on tips to pay for her piano storage and other expenses. Dr. Blackwell felt very proud of himself for solving what he saw as a problem so quickly and efficiently. He had used his authority and connections to get what he wanted without having to confront Maya directly. He thought he was being clever and professional. On Monday morning, Dr. Blackwell sent out a campus-wide email announcing his new policy. He wrote the message in the same complicated, formal language he had used for the policy itself. He said that the university was committed to maintaining the highest standards of artistic excellence, and that it needed to ensure that all musical performances near the campus met professional criteria for quality and appropriateness. Most of the professors who received Dr. Blackwell's email were confused by the fancy language and did not immediately understand what it meant. The students who saw it were even more puzzled. No one realized that the dean's new rule was specifically designed to stop Maya from playing her daily concerts. Dr. Blackwell arranged for 2 security guards to be at Maya's corner on Tuesday afternoon when she arrived for her usual performance. He wanted to make sure that his new policy was enforced right away, before anyone could organize opposition to it. The dean did not go to the corner himself on Tuesday. He did not want to see Maya's reaction when she was told to leave. He did not want to explain his decision to the students and faculty members who loved her music. Instead, he stayed in his office, working on other projects and congratulating himself on handling a difficult situation. So professionally, Dr. Blackwell truly believed that he had done the right thing. He thought that by removing Maya from her corner, he was protecting the university's reputation and ensuring that only the most qualified musicians performed near the campus. He was sure that after a few days, everyone would forget about the street pianist and appreciate the more refined atmosphere he had created. The dean had no idea that his decision would soon create the biggest controversy of his career. He did not understand how much Maya meant to the people who heard her play every day. He had never experienced the kind of music that comes from the heart rather than from formal training, and perfect technique. Dr. Blackwell was about to learn that sometimes the most important art comes from the most unexpected places, and that trying to control beauty and inspiration is much harder than he had imagined. Maya arrived at her corner on Tuesday afternoon just like she had every day for 3 years. She was humming a little tune and looking forward to playing a new song she had been practicing. But when she turned the corner with her piano, she stopped. Suddenly, 2 security guards were standing in her usual spot, and they did not look happy to see her. The older guard stepped forward and cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can't set up here today," he said. His voice was gentle, but Maya could see that he felt uncomfortable about what he was doing. "We have orders from the dean's office. There's a new policy about street performances." Maya felt confused and scared. "I don't understand," she said. "I've been playing here for 3 years. No one ever said I couldn't play here before." "What's wrong?" The younger guard pulled out a piece of paper and read from it in a flat, official voice. "As of Monday, this area has been designated as a no-solicitation zone. Street performances that involve collecting money are no longer permitted in university-adjacent areas." He folded the paper and put it back in his pocket. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We're just doing our job." Maya looked around the familiar corner where she had shared so much music and joy. A few students were gathering nearby, wondering what was happening. Some of her regular listeners were arriving for the daily concert, only to find guards instead of music. "But where am I supposed to go?" Maya asked. "This corner has been my home for 3 years. The people here, they come to listen every day. Some of them need the music." The guards looked at each other uncomfortably. They could see that Maya was a good person who was not causing any trouble, but they had their orders and they could not change them. "You could try the park downtown," the older guard suggested quietly, "or maybe the shopping center." "I'm really sorry about this." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she did not want to cry in front of everyone. She slowly turned her piano around and began to push it back toward her storage unit. As she walked away, she could hear students behind her asking the guards what was happening and why Maya was leaving. By evening, news of Maya's banishment was spreading all over campus. Students were texting each other and posting on social media. Faculty members were talking about it in the hallways and in the coffee shops. Everyone wanted to know why Maya had been forced to leave her corner. Jennifer Park was a junior studying journalism, and she had been one of Maya's most faithful listeners. Every Tuesday and Thursday after her statistics class, Jennifer would stop by Maya's corner to hear a few songs before going to her part-time job at the library. Maya's music always helped Jennifer feel calm and ready to tackle the rest of her day. When Jennifer heard what had happened, she decided to investigate. She had learned in her journalism classes that when something unfair happens, reporters should ask questions and find out the truth. Jennifer started by looking up Dr. Blackwell's policy announcement and reading it carefully. The more Jennifer read, The angrier she became. The dean's policy was full of fancy words that did not really mean anything. He talked about acoustic pollution and maintaining standards. But Jennifer knew that Maya's music was not pollution, it was art, and Maya's playing was certainly high quality, even if she did not have a fancy concert hall. Jennifer decided to interview people about how Maya's music had affected their lives. She was amazed by what she discovered. Professor Williams from the English department told her that he had proposed to his wife while Maya was playing The Way You Look Tonight on a sunny afternoon last spring. Sarah Chun, who taught music theory, said that Maya's unique playing style had inspired her to research adaptive techniques for disabled musicians. Tom Rodriguez, who worked in maintenance, told Jennifer that Maya's music helped him get through the day after his mother died last year. "I would take my lunch break at her corner," Tom said. "Her music somehow made me feel like everything was going to be okay, like my mom was still with me somehow." Jennifer interviewed dozens of people over the next 2 days. She talked to students who said Maya's music helped them concentrate on their studies. She spoke with professors who planned their walking routes to pass by Maya's corner. She even found couples who had had their first kiss while listening to Maya. Why Dr. Sarah Chun was especially interested in Jennifer's investigation. Dr. Chun was a respected music professor who had been at Whitmore University for 15 years. She had always admired Maya's courage and creativity, and she was outraged that Dr. Blackwell had silenced such a talented and beloved performer. Dr. Chun decided to do her own research into Dr. Blackwell's policy. She discovered that the dean had made several false claims in his justification for banning Maya. The area where Maya played was not actually on university property, which meant that Dr. Blackwell did not have the right to control what happened there. The dean had also claimed that street performances disrupted classes, but Dr. Chun found no evidence that anyone had ever complained about Maya's music. Most importantly, Dr. Chun learned that Dr. Blackwell had not consulted with any other faculty members before creating his new policy. According to university rules, major policy changes were supposed to be discussed with department heads and senior professors. Dr. Blackwell had ignored these rules completely. While Dr. Chun was researching the legal issues, Jennifer was organizing student support for Maya. She created a petition demanding that Maya be allowed to return to her corner. The petition explained Maya's story and included quotes from all the people Jennifer had interviewed. The petition spread across campus faster than anyone had expected. Students were signing it in their dorms, in the cafeteria, and between classes. Professors were printing copies and leaving them in their offices for colleagues to sign. Even staff members like janitors and food service workers were adding their names to the list. Within 2 days, the petition had over 3,000 signatures. But the support for Maya was growing beyond just names on paper. Students were creating social media campaigns with hashtags like #LetMayaPlay and #MusicIsForEveryone. They were posting videos of themselves talking about what Maya's music meant to them. Local news stations started paying attention to the story. Channel 7 sent a reporter to interview Jennifer and some of the people who supported Maya. The story was presented as a battle between a heartless administrator and a beloved community artist. Dr. Blackwell did not look good in the coverage. The story spread to regional news outlets and even got mentioned in a national arts magazine. Alumni from Whitmore University who lived in other cities started calling the school to express their disappointment with Dr. Blackwell's decision. Some alumni who had planned to donate money to the university said they were reconsidering their gifts. Dr. Chun organized a group of faculty members to write a letter to the university president. The letter explained that Dr. Blackwell had overstepped his authority and that his policy was hurting the university's reputation. 23 professors signed the letter, including several department heads and some of the most respected teachers. At the school, meanwhile, Maya was struggling with her new situation. She tried playing in the downtown park, but it was not the same. The acoustics were different, and she did not have the same connection with the people who passed by. Most of the people in the park were just walking through and did not stop to listen. Maya missed her regular audience and the sense of community she had built on her corner. Maya also had practical problems. The downtown area had strict rules about when street performers could play, and the police sometimes asked her to move along even when she was following all the regulations. She was not making as much money in tips, which meant she was having trouble paying for her piano storage and her other expenses, but Maya was not giving up. She had been through much harder challenges than this, and she had learned that sometimes the most beautiful things come after the most difficult struggles. She continued practicing new songs and hoped that somehow she would find a way to return to her beloved corner. The controversy was growing bigger every day. Students were planning protests. Faculty members were demanding meetings with the university administration. The local newspaper was running daily stories about the situation. Alumni were threatening to stop their donations. Dr. Blackwell was beginning to realize that his simple solution to what he saw as an image problem had created a much bigger problem, but he was too proud to admit that he had made a mistake. Instead, he started preparing to defend his decision at a faculty meeting that the university president had demanded he hold to address the growing controversy. Dr. Blackwell sat in his office on Friday morning, staring at the stack of angry emails on his desk. The university president had called him 3 times in the past 2 days. Alumni were demanding explanations. Local news reporters were leaving voicemails asking for interviews. What had seemed like a simple administrative decision was turning into a public relations nightmare. The dean had hoped that people would forget about Maya after a few days, but the opposite was happening. The story was getting bigger and more attention every day. Students were wearing buttons with Maya's picture on them. Faculty members were openly criticizing his decision in their classes. Even the cafeteria workers were talking about how much they missed hearing piano music during their afternoon breaks. President Martinez had given Dr. Blackwell an ultimatum: hold a faculty meeting to explain his policy and try to calm down the controversy, or face a formal review of his actions by the university board. Dr. Blackwell chose the meeting, confident that he could convince his fellow academics that he had made the right decision for the good of the institution. Dr. Blackwell spent hours preparing his presentation. He made PowerPoint slides with charts and graphs. He researched policies from other prestigious universities. He practiced his speech in front of a mirror, making sure he sounded authoritative and professional. He was determined to show everyone that his decision was based on sound academic principles, not personal prejudice. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon in the university's grand auditorium. Dr. Blackwell had requested the large space because he expected a big turnout, but he assumed it would mostly be faculty members who would understand his reasoning once he explained it properly. When Dr. Blackwell arrived at the auditorium 30 minutes before the meeting, he was shocked by what he saw. The parking lot was full of cars, and there were groups of students gathering outside the building. News vans from 3 different television stations were set up in the parking area. Someone had put up a banner that said, "Music belongs to everyone," across the front of the auditorium, inside the building. Dr. Blackwell discovered that the auditorium was already half full, even though the meeting was not supposed to start for another half hour. Most of the people in the seats were not faculty members. Students filled entire rows, many of them holding signs supporting Maya. Staff members from all over campus were there too: janitors, secretaries, food service workers, and maintenance crews. Dr. Chun was sitting in the front row with a thick folder of papers. Jennifer Park was in the second row with her notebook and recorder, ready to document everything that happened. Even some people from the surrounding community had come, including several who recognized Maya from her performances, but were not connected to the university. Dr. Blackwell felt nervous as he walked to the front of the auditorium, but he tried not to show it. He had faced difficult audiences before during his academic career, and he was confident in his ability to present a logical argument. He believed that once people heard his reasoning, they would understand why Maya's performances had to stop. At exactly 3 o'clock, Dr. Blackwell began his presentation. He started by talking about the reputation of Whitmore University and the importance of maintaining high standards in all areas of campus life. He showed slides with statistics about university rankings and donor contributions. He talked about the need to create a professional atmosphere that would attract the best students and faculty. Street performances, Dr. Blackwell said, create an environment that is inconsistent with the academic seriousness that our institution represents. When prospective students and their families visit our campus, they should see evidence of our commitment to excellence, not informal entertainment that anyone could provide. The audience was very quiet during this part of the presentation, but Dr. Blackwell could sense that people were not agreeing with him. Some faculty members were shaking their heads. Students were whispering to each other and frowning. Dr. Blackwell continued with his prepared speech, showing more slides about environmental disruptions and acoustic pollution. He talked about studies that supposedly showed that unexpected sounds could interfere with student concentration and learning. He mentioned other universities that had policies similar to his new regulation. As the dean spoke, his presentation became more and more technical. He used big words and complex sentences that made his arguments sound academic and official. But the more he talked, the more disconnected he seemed from the real issue that had brought everyone to the meeting. Dr. Blackwell never mentioned Maya by name during his presentation. He talked about unauthorized performers and unregulated activities, but he avoided acknowledging that his policy was specifically designed to stop one person, who had brought joy to thousands of people over 3 years. When the dean finished his presentation, he opened the floor for questions and discussion. Dr. Chun was the first person to stand up. She had been at Whitmore University much longer than Dr. Blackwell, and everyone respected her knowledge and judgment. Dr. Blackwell, Dr. Chun said in a clear, strong voice, I have been researching your policy and I have found several serious problems with both its content and the way it was implemented. First, you claim that the area where Maya performed is under university jurisdiction, but according to city records and university property maps, that corner is actually public space that the university has no right to regulate. Dr. Blackwell started to interrupt, but Dr. Chun continued speaking. Second, you claim that street performances create disruptions to the educational environment, but I have found no evidence that anyone ever complained about Maya's music. In fact, I have documented statements from dozens of faculty members saying that her music enhanced their campus experience. Dr. Chun held up her thick folder. I also have evidence that you did not follow proper university procedures when creating this policy. Major policy changes are supposed to be reviewed by department heads and senior faculty. You ignored these established processes completely. Students in the audience started clapping when Dr. Chun finished speaking. Dr. Blackwell looked uncomfortable and tried to respond with more technical language about administrative authority, but his answers sounded weak and defensive. Professor Williams from the English department stood up next. Dr. Blackwell, I have been at this university for 20 years, and I have never seen a policy that has caused so much anger and disappointment among students, faculty, and staff. Maya Rodriguez is not just a street performer, she is an artist who has created a sense of community and beauty on our campus. Your decision to silence her reflects poorly on all of us. More faculty members started speaking up. They talked about how Maya's music had enriched campus life and brought people together across different departments and social groups. They pointed out that the university should be supporting artists, not silencing them. Tom Rodriguez, the maintenance worker, who had talked to Jennifer about how Maya's music helped him after his mother's death, asked for permission to speak. Dr. Blackwell, Tom said, I don't have a fancy education like most of the people in this room, but I know what good music sounds like and I know what kindness looks like. Maya's music helped me through the hardest time in my life. Why do you want to take that away from people like me? The auditorium erupted in applause. Students were standing up and cheering. Even some of the faculty members were clapping enthusiastically. Dr. Blackwell looked around the room and realized that he had completely misjudged the situation. Jennifer Park asked if she could read some of the comments from her petition. She shared stories from students who said Maya's music helped them feel less homesick. She read statements from professors who planned their daily schedules around Maya's performances. She told the story of the couple who got engaged during one of Maya's concerts. As Jennifer spoke, Dr. Blackwell began to understand that he had not just banned a street performer, he had disrupted something much more important and meaningful. But he was too proud and stubborn to admit his mistake in front of so many people. Just as the meeting was becoming more and more heated, there was a commotion at the back of the auditorium. People turned around to see Maya Rodriguez entering through the side door. She was carrying a small electronic keyboard, and her damaged left hand was clearly visible as she made her way to the front of the room. Dr. Chun had invited Maya to the meeting, believing that the person most affected by the dean's decision should have a chance to speak for herself. Maya looked nervous but determined as she set up her simple keyboard on the stage next to Dr. Blackwell's elaborate presentation equipment. Dr. Blackwell was clearly annoyed by this disruption to his carefully planned meeting. "This is a faculty meeting," he said stiffly. "I'm not sure it's appropriate for non-university personnel to participate." But the audience was not interested in Dr. Blackwell's objections. They wanted to hear from Maya. Students were cheering and calling out encouragement. Faculty members were nodding approval. Even President Martinez, who had been sitting quietly in the back, gestured for Maya to proceed. Maya stood up and looked out at the packed auditorium. The auditorium was so quiet that Maya could hear her own heartbeat. Hundreds of people were looking at her, waiting to see what she would do. Dr. Blackwell stood frozen at his podium, clearly wanting to say no but unable to speak in front of so many expectant faces. Maya looked around the room at all the people who had supported her. She saw Jennifer Park with her notebook, ready to document whatever happened next. She saw Dr. Chun nodding encouragement from the front row. She saw Tom Rodriguez and other staff members who had always brightened her day with their smiles and waves. Most importantly, she saw dozens of students whose faces she recognized from her daily performances on the corner. "I know this is unusual," Maya said, her voice getting stronger as she spoke. "But sometimes music can say things that words cannot say." Dr. Blackwell, "You have made your arguments with charts and statistics and policies. Let me make mine with a song." Dr. Blackwell looked around the auditorium, realizing that everyone was waiting for his response. If he said no, he would look like he was afraid of one woman with a small keyboard. If he said yes, he might be giving Maya a platform to make him look bad. But the crowd's expectant silence made it clear that refusing would make him appear even more unreasonable than he already did. "Fine," Dr. Blackwell said stiffly, "but let's keep this brief. This is supposed to be a faculty meeting, not a concert." Maya nodded and sat down at her keyboard. She placed her hands on the keys and took a deep breath. For a moment, she closed her eyes and thought about everything that had led her to this moment. Her childhood dreams, her accident, her years of learning to play again, her 3 years of bringing music to the corner, and now this chance to fight for what she believed in. Maya had spent the past few days composing a special piece of music for this moment. She called it My Story in her mind, though she had never told anyone else that name. It was a musical autobiography that would tell everyone in the auditorium who she really was and why music mattered so much to her. The piece began very softly, with just a few gentle notes from Maya's right hand. The melody was sweet and innocent, like a child's lullaby. This represented Maya's early years when music was pure joy and everything seemed possible. Some people in the audience leaned forward to hear better, and the auditorium became even quieter than before. Gradually, Maya added more notes and the melody became more complex and confident. Her right hand danced across the keys while her left hand added soft harmonies. This was Maya at Juilliard, full of hope and ambition, believing that she would conquer the world with her talent. Even Dr. Blackwell found himself listening despite his determination to remain unmoved. Then suddenly the music changed. Maya struck a harsh, discordant chord that made several people in the audience jump. The melody became jagged and painful, full of broken rhythms and notes that seemed to fight against each other. This was the accident, the moment when Maya's dreams were shattered and her future became uncertain. Some people in the auditorium started to understand that they were not just hearing a song, they were hearing Maya's life story told through music. The harsh section continued for what felt like a long time, though it was probably only a minute or two. Maya's face showed the pain she had felt during those dark months when she thought her musical life was over. Her damaged left hand could only contribute a few weak notes, which made the music sound even more broken and sad. But then, slowly, something beautiful began to happen. The painful notes started to resolve into something gentler. Maya's right hand found a new melody, one that was different from the innocent tune she had played at the beginning. This new melody was more complex, more interesting, and somehow more real. It had sadness in it, but also hope. It had struggle in it, but also determination. Maya's left hand began to add small touches to the music. The few fingers that could move properly played simple but important notes that made the melody more beautiful. Instead of trying to do what a normal left hand would do, Maya's injured hand did something unique and special. The limitations had become part of the music's character, not a flaw to be hidden. As the music continued, more people in the auditorium began to understand what they were hearing. This was not just a song, it was a story about how beautiful things can come from broken places. It was about how limitations can lead to new kinds of creativity. It was about how the most meaningful art often comes from the most personal struggles. Maya played passages that sounded like conversations between her two hands, with the strong right hand carrying the melody and the damaged left hand adding gentle comments and support. She played sections that sounded like questions and answers, like hope and doubt talking to each other. She played music that seemed to capture the feeling of getting up after falling down, of trying again after failing, of finding joy in unexpected places. Some people in the audience were crying now, but they were not sad tears. They were the kind of tears that come when something touches the deepest part of your heart, when you recognize a truth that you had never been able to put into words before. Professor Williams was crying, remembering how Maya's music had provided the soundtrack for his proposal to his wife. Tom Rodriguez was crying, thinking about his mother and how Maya's music had helped him feel less alone in his grief. Even some of the faculty members, who had not known Maya's story before, were moved by what they were hearing. The music was telling them about resilience and creativity and the power of art to heal both the artist and the audience. They began to understand why so many people had fought so hard to defend Maya's right to play. As the piece built toward its conclusion, Maya brought back the innocent melody from the beginning, but now it was richer and more complex. It was the same tune, but transformed by everything that had happened since. This represented Maya today, still the same person who had loved music as a child, but changed by her experiences into someone deeper and more interesting. The music seemed to embrace everyone in the auditorium. It was like Maya was saying, "This is who I am, this is what I have been through, and this is what I have to offer the world." The final notes were both sad and hopeful, both personal and universal. When Maya played the last chord, the sound seemed to hang in the air for a long moment before fading away. The auditorium remained completely silent for what felt like forever. No one moved, no one coughed, no one whispered. Everyone was absorbing what they had just experienced, trying to process the emotions that Maya's music had stirred up. Finally, Dr. Chun began to clap. Her applause was slow and deliberate, full of respect and admiration. One by one, other people joined in. Professor Williams started clapping, then Jennifer Park, then Tom Rodriguez. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was erupting in applause. People were not just clapping, they were standing up. Students were cheering and whistling. Faculty members were applauding with tears streaming down their faces. Even some of the news reporters in the back were clapping, their professional objectivity temporarily forgotten. The applause went on and on. Maya sat at her keyboard, overwhelmed by the response. She had poured her heart out in that song, sharing her most personal struggles and triumphs with a room full of people. The fact that they understood and appreciated what she had offered meant more to her than she could express. Dr. Blackwell stood at his podium, frozen. He was the only person in the auditorium who was not applauding. For the first time since this whole controversy began, he was truly seeing Maya as a person rather than as a problem to be solved. He was beginning to understand that he had not just banned a street performer, he had silenced an artist whose music touched people's souls in ways that his charts and policies never could dot. As the applause finally began to die down, Dr. Blackwell realized that he had to say something. But what could he say? How could he follow a performance that had moved hundreds of people to tears? How could he explain his policies after everyone had just experienced the power of the music he wanted? To silence? Dr. Blackwell looked around the auditorium one more time. He saw the faces of students, faculty, and staff who had been unified by Maya's music. He saw people who had been strangers to each other sharing a moment of pure artistic connection. He realized that in trying to make the university more prestigious, he had almost destroyed something much more valuable, the sense of community and shared humanity that Maya's music had created. The dean cleared his throat and stepped away from his podium. For the first time since the meeting began, he looked directly at Maya instead of addressing the crowd. "Miss Rodriguez," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I made my decision based on abstract principles and policies, but I never took the time to understand what your music means to this community. I was wrong, and I am sorry." The auditorium erupted in applause again, but this time it was different. People were clapping for Dr. Blackwell's honesty and courage in admitting his mistake. Maya stood up from her keyboard and walked over to shake the dean's hand. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means a lot to me." Within a week, Maya was back on her corner, playing for her daily audience of students, faculty, and staff. But the controversy had changed things in ways no one had expected. The university created a new program to support community artists.